Hey, everybody. Jason and John here for Everyday Crypto, sponsored by CryptoTaxShield.com. Jason, my friend, thanks for sitting down yet again for another, hopefully, great episode.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it as always.
You bet. So this one's a little personal to me. I've noticed over the past day or so, Bitcoin's up about 8%, 9%, something like that, kind of making some moves. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to sit down with Jason and have him pitch to me why you would want to own Bitcoin in the first place. So I think it's very fascinating. So I thought I'd bring you in and we'll talk about that today.
Yeah, it's a great subject. That should help everybody out.
Yeah.
If I could, please, if you find any entertainment or educational value in this at all, please like and subscribe. It helps us help you, and we appreciate it. We truly do. And please, we are not financial advisors. Do your own research.
That's right.
Yeah, so Bitcoin, it's funny. We made that video yesterday, and we kind of said that it feels like Bitcoin wants to do something crazy, right?
Right.
And if you know anything about Bitcoin, that's what it does. It'll bore you to death, and then it will just take off.
Mm-hmm.
And why should everyone? Here's the pitch for Bitcoin, right? I think this is what people don't understand. Yeah, I was talking to my neighbor a few days ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know about crypto. I think the government will shut down Bitcoin." Like, no.
Right.
That's why I said about 2014 when I first saw Bitcoin. I said, "Yeah, governments will never allow that." But I didn't understand the power of decentralization.
Right.
Bitcoin is not, there's no home office for Bitcoin or corporate office. It is owned by the people, and it's ran through a million different nodes spread all across the world through the mining. That's what mining does, right?
Right.
You can't shut it down. You can't stop it. Trust me, they've tried.
Right.
Just to give you an example of how big Bitcoin is now. Bitcoin right now is in comparison to market caps of other investments like gold, silver, stocks, stuff like that, Bitcoin's the ninth biggest asset in the world right now. The ninth. Wow. It's bigger than, I wrote it down, it's bigger than Berkshire Hathaway, NVIDIA, Meta, Facebook, Visa, Palladium, Bank of America, Exxon, MasterCard, just to name a few.
Crazy.
It's climbing to the top. You know, Michael Saylor called it the most pristine asset ever, and I agree with him.
Interesting.
So why does Bitcoin keep growing? Well, you got to think about it. They always call it gold, right? It's like gold. It's a store of wealth. That's true, but that's only because when you're really rich and you want to store wealth, you have very little options, right? Gold used to be the go-to, but if you got $1 billion, I mean, storing gold and traveling with it is impossible. Even shipping a bar of gold across state lines is probably illegal.
Right.
Whereas Bitcoin, you can store trillions of dollars of it in just a USB or a wallet.
Right.
You can travel across the world with it. You can send it anywhere in the world within minutes. This is the thing, right? And, right now there's more countries and states that are aggressively trying to get Bitcoin as legal tender.
Right. And
this is getting out of control. It's happening so fast, even a guy like me couldn't have imagined it happening this fast. Like a year from now, all South America is going to have Bitcoin as legal tender.
For sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Russia's trying to use Bitcoin to avoid the sanctions on America.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine's trying to use it to stabilize our economy and fund the war effort. Bitcoin right now is the fourth biggest currency in the world. But you got to take that into thought. Like, it has no nation. It has, like, it's just behind the dollar, the yuan, the euro. That's it. Like, it's bigger than all the rest of the world's currencies. Right. That's insane. Like, right now, I believe there's 1.8 trillion American dollars.
Right.
Bitcoin is a little under $1 trillion market cap.
Wow. Yeah.
This is how fast it's just eating the world. And for the people who are still sleeping on it, I don't know what to tell you to wake up.
Right.
It's not going to stop. This train doesn't stop.
That's right.
If you know the history of Bitcoin, it's the most amazing story ever. It had no liquidity when it came out.
Right.
So it shouldn't have survived that.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. government tried several times to aggressively shut it down. It survived that.
Right.
It has survived 90% crashes. It's survived everything. And now it's the point where every major corporation and nations are using it to stabilize their currency. It's just going to grow faster and faster and faster. And I believe within a couple of years, it'll be the biggest asset in the world. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Well, it seems to be going that way, and it's interesting. You hit upon the idea that governments have tried to shut this down and failed. Not only have they failed, they've gotten in line. You know what I mean? They're starting to play the game too. That tells me everything I need to know. If they're at a point where they're like, well, we're going to stop shutting it down and we're going to learn how to use it, that says everything I need to know.
Yeah, you know, the smartest bankers in the world who pretty much run the world, right? Like they're the ones who really buy your politicians and all this, that. Sure. They're the ones who make the big shots. Like, if they couldn't shut it down, because it's a direct, massive threat to their survival.
That's right.
You don't need banks. If you got a cell phone and some cryptocurrency, you do not no longer need a bank. It's unnecessary for you.
That's right.
And banks have been ripping us off for the last couple hundred years. If you can go further back than that.
Yep.
And we've always just taken it because what else are you going to do?
Right.
Right. And let me tell you something else. The Federal Reserve System that runs this globe, and you could call this a conspiracy theory, but really you can look into it. This world is ran by the Federal Reserve System, which are not attached to governments. People don't know that. Like, the Federal Reserve is not a government entity. It's a private entity.
That's right.
If they could not shut this thing down with all the power they have, like they have all the power in the world. Like, there's no one more powerful.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think? You think this thing's slowing down, or is it only going to get faster, stronger, more adaptive?
Yep.
And it's going to bring the whole crypto ecosystem with it. Like, everything related to crypto follows Bitcoin. And I know a lot of the newer crypto investors don't even buy Bitcoin because it's kind of boring to them.
Right.
But you should hold it for stability, store wealth. You should hold it just because. So there's, at the end of the day, 100 years from now, there will be 21 million Bitcoin available.
Okay.
That's it. There will never be any more created. And the mass majority of that, like, I think we're at 18 million now. So there's only 3 more million left.
Right.
And a lot of those have been lost in time. There's an estimate of about 30% of that Bitcoin, 20 to 30% has been lost to time because people bought it way back when it was worthless and they just lost their computer or threw it away, right?
Yep.
Or you got the second richest man in Mexico who went surfing and he had a couple $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. He died, but he didn't leave his seed phrase to his family. So that's just gone. Like, it can't be retrieved. So really you're looking at about 15, 16 million Bitcoin that will ever really be up for grabs.
Right.
And when you have all the world's major corporations, nations, states, rich, poor, when everyone's trying to get their hands on this, and when they find out that there's not that much of there, that there's going to be a complete supply shock, imagine what Bitcoin's really going to be worth.
Sure. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, I see news stories every week where, what is it, at 40, 45 or whatever ish now? They're talking 250, 40, yeah. So they're talking like 250, 300,000 at some point, which is just crazy. That's crazy growth. Yeah. So that brings up a good question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but all that lost Bitcoin from the old days or from people dying and not leaving their phrases, there's no way, like there's no entity at some point that could come in and help find that, or it's just gone. That's the allotment. It's gone and gone forever.
Gone forever. There's a guy who was a big Bitcoin believer early on, and he bought like several $1,000s worth of it. But back then it was like, a couple pennies, so he bought a lot of it.
Sure.
And he put it on his hard drive and disconnected his computer for safety reasons. That's what people used to do, years ago before. And somehow the maid or his mother threw that computer away. And he knows it's sitting in a landfill in, like, I think it's Georgia or somewhere. But it's literally worth billions of dollars now. Wow. So he's working with the city to try and start digging up that landfill because it's crazy. Billions of dollars, right? Yeah, it's pretty nuts, man. And like you said, Bitcoin started to move, and it's so funny. You watch Bitcoin, and it acts like no other asset ever. It can go to sleep for a while and do nothing. It can go down when you swear it's about to go up. Right. And then when you're least expecting it, which seems right about now, right?
Yeah.
All assets are kind of sleeping right now. Mm-hmm. It's just going to take off. Watch. One day we're waking up, oh my gosh, what's happening? It's just going.
Yep. Yeah. And another thing you mentioned earlier is about how crypto and just in general, particularly in South America, where so many countries are adopting it as a form of currency officially. What a great way for people like in Venezuela and some of these other places that have been so rocked by hyperinflation that they can't afford food and all these other things. So to move away from sort of fiat currency that way and maybe level the playing field for them, what a savior. You know what I mean? What a great way to if no other reason, just to survive.
John, you nailed it, man. Listen, there are, I think, 2 billion people on Earth who don't have access to any kind of banking system. We're talking like places in Africa, Sierra Leone, Congo, places in South America.
Right.
They don't have access. It's not an option for them. And their currencies are insanely unstable.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've seen those $10 trillion bills from like whatever country that was.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
Just imagine these people who live in these countries who have no real way of moving forward because of this problem. But they do have one thing. They've got cell phones and internet.
Yep.
Now you're your own bank.
Mm-hmm.
You can, instead of worrying about your country's horrendous currency, you can just buy Bitcoin.
Yep.
It's stable. And not only is it stable, but over time it outgrows every other asset, right? So
right.
you can imagine how much that changes those people's lives.
Absolutely. So
with Bitcoin, you've got the rich, they're going to want it to preserve their wealth, but also not allow banks to lock up their wealth.
Right.
We have seen it with the Russian oligarchs, right?
Yep.
You got countries who are just going to abandon their currency altogether and use Bitcoin as a stabilizer.
Right.
Not the poor who are going to use it to better their lives because they don't have access to banks. It's not like they don't like banks. They just don't have access to them, right?
Sure.
And then you got investors.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of all that, just to touch on this real quick, one of my favorite projects, which we've spoken on this before, is Terra Luna.
Yeah. And
Terra Luna's whole ecosystem is based around the strength of its one stable coin, UST.
Gotcha. Right.
They just announced a couple of days ago that they're going to start backing up the stability of their stable coin with $10 billion worth of Bitcoin.
Wow.
Just to show you how big that is, their market cap right now for the whole Terra Luna is only about $30 billion right now.
Correct.
They're willing to throw $10 million at this. That's how much they know Bitcoin is the future. And Terra Luna is like the smartest guys in the room. Like they are ahead of the curve on everything crypto. That's why I love them so much. They're so if they're doing this and they see this, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean none of us knows everything, but when you start seeing folks like that, folks like you espousing certain things, smart people are going to listen. They're going to take notes. They're going to do their own research, of course, which is what we always pontificate about. But smart people are going to take notes and make moves based on that information. So
let me tell you one really cool thing about Bitcoin, John.
Absolutely.
So the wealthy get wealthy by buying assets, mostly real estate, and never selling them.
Right.
And you might ask, well, then how do they get money out of it, right? Like when they need money. Well, here's what they do. Like, let's just say you bought a city block of Manhattan back when Manhattan was nothing.
Right.
And you still own it, but you need money. Well, here's what the rich do. They don't sell their assets. They borrow against it.
Right.
And this is the same case for Bitcoin. One day if you need money down the road, you don't need to sell it. You can always, within a 5-minute push of a button, without your name or anything else, you can borrow against that asset and never have to sell it. So you still have the access to the appreciating asset.
Okay.
You borrowed against it at a very small interest rate. The growth is dramatically higher than that interest rate.
Right.
So borrowing against it, like Michael Saylor, the great Michael Saylor from Micro Strategy. He not only bought billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin out of his treasury for the corporation, he borrowed billions of dollars to buy more.
Right.
And what do you think he knows?
A lot. Yeah.
Right.
He knows all the things. You know what we're going to do? We'll have to do an episode on that about how to do that sort of. And I know we're not going to give necessarily financial advice, but it would be fun to break that down in terms of everyday Joe. Like, how do you make that kind of work? So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to do an episode on that. Jason, thanks so much, man. This is good info. Everybody, CryptoTaxShield.com, check it out. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Jason, let's do another one of these soon.
John, as always, I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.